our next speaker is Josh. Josh is going to share his personal story. Josh?
How you doing, guys? My name's Josh. I'm 19 years old. I grew up in the town of Haverhill. I really don't know what I'm going to say here tonight. I hadn't thought about it. Hopefully I can help somebody in here. I'm going to try to make this as smoothly as possible. First of all, I'm a recovered heroin addict. I just want to say, if there's anybody in here that is, parents or has lost somebody, I know personally that it was not your fault. There is nothing that my parents could have done, absolutely nothing, that would have stopped me from using drugs and alcohol. And I know anyone who has recovered from this disease will tell you the same thing. I've recovered from the disease of drug addiction and alcoholism. And when I say recovered, as in past tense, I mean I do not obsess about getting high anymore. I do not have to worry about getting high anymore because of what I do. And I'll get to that. First time, I went to this school, actually. I went to Constantino Middle School, 6th grade through 8th grade, and I graduated from Haverhill High. First time I ever smoked weed was back there in that parking lot. I think I was 14 years old. I went to St. Joseph's Catholic School. I left there, and I went to Silver Hill. And I went to a Catholic school, and it's very different from a public school. I transferred over to a public school, and I had to adjust very quickly. I didn't know anybody. An easy thing to do was to smoke cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes. I met people, and it was just very easy to just get accepted by people. And I don't know that's exactly the reason why I started. But I'm going to go with that because that's the only thing that I can think of now. Does marijuana and alcohol always lead to bigger things? No, it doesn't. Can it? A lot of the times, yes, it does. For me, I believe it did because the first time I smoked, the first time I drank alcohol was the first time that I altered my mind. It got me out of myself, and I liked the way it felt. I really liked it, and I just ran with it. High school came along, new drugs came up, and little by little, I experimented. I was nervous. Every time I would do something, I was a little nervous. Nothing bad happened. I'd see other people doing it. So the fear kind of just went away, and it was acceptable. And if you guys think that these drugs aren't out there, I'm sure everybody knows they are. It's everywhere. We live in a society where drugs and alcohol are accepted, and it's everywhere. And I used to think I was different because I smoked weed and did drugs and drank differently than everybody else when I'd go to a party, And, it seems like all the kids that always did the right thing and, never drank, never smoked weed, that I grew up with, later on, high school and further on, now they all do the same thing. It didn't escalate like it did for me, but, they all smoke weed, they all drink, and I'm just here to tell the truth. The only reason I'm here tonight is to hopefully help somebody, even if it's just one person in this room. So it moved up, and I tried pills. The first pill I ever did was a Percocet, Perc 30, which is an opiate. It's pretty much heroin in the form of a pill. I did that, and I remembered it was just, made me feel awesome. I loved the way it made me feel. It was easy to hide. I didn't smell. No one had to know. It was quick, and it made me feel better than any drug I'd ever done. I did those about a year and a half, and I hit it very well until I couldn't hide it anymore. I realized after I stopped doing them for a couple of days that I had this physical dependency on it. I would get sick. I didn't know what it was. I learned out it was being dope sickness. You build up a dependency, you stop, you detox, feel horrible. I couldn't even stand up to take a shower. That's how miserable I felt. I weighed 120 pounds, and I was scared. I didn't want to be sick. And the only thing I knew how to do was to use. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to get sick, so I used. And the only reason I used, and people, and this is the thing, is like I used because I loved the way it made me feel. I didn't have this underlying reason why I used, and some people do, but most people don't. And the truth is, people look at you, it's like, why would you do this? It's like, because we like the way it makes us feel. We like the effects the drugs and alcohol produce. So, I couldn't afford my habit anymore. My paychecks were gone the day I got them. So I began to steal from my family after I had sold everything that I owned that had any worth, anything that meant anything to me, all the things I liked to do. I sold everything I had. And then I moved on because I didn't want to get sick. So I stole from my family. The people that we hurt the most are the people that are closest to us. And that's not fair. But that's usually how it goes. Because the truth is, we're all just scared. We're not, us alcoholics and addicts, we're not these big tough guys that are going to go out and, rob banks. You know what I mean? We're petty. We take from our family because we don't want to deal with the consequences. And, as I was doing these things, I didn't want to. You know what I mean? I knew what I was doing was eating at me inside. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. And I didn't know why I couldn't stop. I would tell myself every day, I'm not going to do this today. And I'd be driving down the street past the dealer's house. No, no, no. And then all of a sudden, I would just turn the wheel. Like I was being controlled. And I didn't know why. I did not know why. Eventually I got caught. I got caught stealing. My family had a little intervention on me. That stuff didn't work. Once I had gotten caught from my family and stole everything I could from them, eventually I had to steal from others. I started to break into houses. I stole everything that I could, sold it all, and eventually I was caught for that too. I was arrested in Lawrence, and then the next day I was picked up by the lovely Haverhill Police Department. I thank God every day for that, because that's the first time I truly believe if I wasn't arrested, I wouldn't be here right now, because my addiction got a lot worse. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. I got arrested. I was on an ankle bracelet for about 6 months. They gave me a break. I had a clean record. I was 17, just turning 18. And 3 years probation. They told me, do the right thing. They gave me plenty of rope to hang myself with. And I was good for 6 months when I had this ankle bracelet on. I had to wear it to school. It was embarrassing. And then I was good for about 2 months after I had the bracelet off. I went to my senior prom. Things were good. I was sober. I would drink alcohol once in a while, kind of like a normal person would. I wasn't doing my drug of choice, so I thought I was sober. And I've learned there's a very big difference between being sober and being in recovery. Because while I was sober, I still wanted to get high. I still had this mental obsession every day that I had to fight. If you cracked a can of beer in front of me, my skin would crawl, because all I wanted to do was drink that beer. Anything that could get me outside of myself, I did. My buddy had some Perk 30s. I was on my way to go to the gym. And during this 6 months, I filled my time with things. Once I had this bracelet off and I was doing good, I had 2 jobs, I had a car, I had a girlfriend. I was going to the gym. I looked good. I gained like 40 pounds. You picture me 120 pounds, like 30 pounds lighter than I am right now. And I just kind of filled these things. I filled up my time. I filled this void with all these materialistic things. And, I relapsed on those Percocets that day. I picked up my buddy. We were going to the gym, and he's like, hey, I got a few perks. Found a guy. He's like, oh, well, that sounds like a good idea. I've been sober for like 8 months. I can do it one more time. I can control it, do it once a month, once a week, once every 2 weeks. I'm fine. I got this. I did those, and I think it was the next day I was using again. And let me tell you, being sober for that long and having no recovery work, my disease was doing push-ups in the back of my head. My disease was still growing. When I started using again, it was right where I left off. Actually, I think it was worse. I tried heroin. Hey, it's cheaper. You know what I mean? Does the same thing. Sniffed heroin for a while. Right back to stealing. You know what I mean? Hit it for a little while. And I always said I would never use needles. I would never touch a needle. That's gross. I'm better than that. Well, I got sick of spending a lot of money on drugs and watching somebody spend the fraction of the amount and then shoot it up and then, they're as high as a kite. So I said, you know what, all right, let's try this. From the moment I felt that, I said, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is amazing, and why would I not want to feel like this as often as possible? That's what went through my mind. I did not like what I was doing, and I wanted to stop. My parents knew. I had my parents so sick, I had everybody around me sick, because we don't just affect ourselves, we think we just hurt ourselves. As we get sick, the people around us get sick too. The manipulation, the lies. People walk on eggshells around us because they don't want to set us off. I used intravenously for about 5 months, and I overdosed. I turned blue, like they were saying. By the grace of God, my mom was in the next room, and she knew I had a problem, and something in her mind told her to go in my room. She found me blue. She gave me CPR, and I woke up. And I believe there's a reason I woke up, because, what I've acquired since then has given me a life that I wouldn't trade for anything. I tried to go to detoxes before I overdosed. They said, your insurance does not cover this. You can't go to a detox. I couldn't afford a detox. My parents couldn't afford a detox. Once I overdosed and I went to the hospital, they said, this is life-threatening now because you've overdosed. Apparently, they do not consider a heroin addiction a life-threatening illness because the withdrawals can't kill you. The drug can kill you, but the withdrawals can't. An alcoholic can go to a detox because withdrawals from alcohol can kill you. Withdrawals from benzos can kill you. So I left that hospital because, I had no other options left. I was brought to my knees. I was embarrassed. I wanted help, and I went to a detox in Worcester. I went to a Worcester detox for adolescents. Felt very out of place. I was the only heroin addict there. There was a bunch of young kids, that were just starting out, smoking weed and drinking. And nothing changed, I was there and I stayed there for like a month. Sober for like a month. Still felt the same. Still wanted to get high. I wanted to be well. I wanted to stop using. But I also knew that if my drugs were in front of me, I would do them, and there was nothing that I would be able to do to stop me and myself. So I left there. I talked to my probation officer. He gave me another chance. I blew my first one, and he said, you are going to a residential. You are going to live there, or you are going to jail. It's another big part that really helped me. And, I'll say this is really hard, especially for people that are out on the streets actively using to get help because they can't stop. I had an intervention in my life. I was forced to go. I wanted the help, but at the same time, if I could have just said, no, I'm just going to go home and do this by myself, I'm going to go to AA, I'm going to go to NA, that's what I would have done. But he said, no, you're going to go here. You're going to live here. So I lived at Cab Danvers Detox in Danvers, Massachusetts. I lived there for 3.5 months. It's an adolescent, addiction treatment program. I lived there for like a month. First starting out, it was good. I was sober. I felt good. I looked good. But I still knew that I would get high. I didn't want to, but I knew that I would if it was there in front of me. A few people came in for a commitment about a month into my stay there. A commitment is when people come in and they speak, kind of like what I'm doing right now. And they were all recovered heroin addicts, alcoholics. And, I really liked what they had to say. They all recovered from this addiction. I knew that they were drug addicts. For the first 5 minutes they spoke, I knew they were drug addicts. And they had something different about them. They were well. They were happy. And, they knew how to stay sober. And it was different because I had gone to NA meetings before. I went to a couple AA meetings, and I heard a lot of things like, just keep coming. Just keep coming. Don't use no matter what. Just say no. Call me if you feel like you're going to use. Well, those things are great, but I couldn't stop using. I would go to NA meetings and I would get high. I would leave and I would get high. I would call people on the phone knowing that when I hung up, I was going to get high and there was nothing that they could do or say that was going to stop me. I couldn't say no. I have no willpower because I am a true addict. True addicts and alcoholics do not have willpower. We can't say no. And I learned this. I'm going to get to this actually. I told you I didn't know why I used and I couldn't stop using. My parents would ask me, oh, you've been sober for like 5 days. You just got through the withdrawals. Why would you do this again? And the most honest answer I could give them was, I don't know, because I didn't know. That was as honest as I could be. I asked these guys, I said, what do you guys do? And I would see people in meetings, sober for like 10 years, 20 years, miserable people. And I said, why would I want to be sober and miserable? Because they have no solution. They just say no every day because they have a little bit of willpower. Me, I didn't have any. They just fight this every day. They fight that mental obsession and they're miserable. I would rather be using than be miserable because at least when I was miserable, I could use and feel better temporarily. So I asked them what they did, and they said, we take steps through the AA book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, AA, I'm a drug addict. And they said, it doesn't matter. Replace the word alcohol with drugs. Replace it with anything you want. It's addiction. It doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, whatever you like to do. And at the time, I wanted what they had. I wanted to be done with this. I wanted to have my life back. I just wanted to have a normal life. I wanted to be able to be a good son to my parents, be a good friend, be a good boyfriend, have a job, have a life, have a career, not have to worry about having a record. Just live life like a normal human being. So I started doing work with them in the book. It's called The 12 Steps of AA. I asked this guy to sponsor me. He said, yes, absolutely, but what are you willing to do? Are you willing to do anything it takes to stay sober for the rest of your life? And I said, yes, because I was miserable. And he said, okay, well, here's my number. Are you willing to call me? I said, yes. He said, we'll start with that. You call me. Show me that you're willing to put in a fraction of the effort that I'm willing to give you. Because I'm willing to give you everything that I have for free. But you just have to call me. So I called him. He started coming over to the detox that I was in, the program. He would come after work, covered in paint. You know, he works on cars, he's a mechanic, you know, works all day long, and would come over, and he would sit down in this room with me, an 18-year-old drug addict. And he would take me through the book. You know, these are steps. You take 1, you take 2, you take 3, you go up to 12. They're little baby steps, like learning how to walk. Each one leads you to the next one. And the first one, I feel, is the most important. Admitting that you're powerless over the disease of addiction, meaning I am powerless. I cannot have a sip of alcohol. I cannot smoke weed. Once I do, I'm powerless over it. I can't say no. You know, if I had a drink tomorrow, I might not be, you know, doing heroin the next day, but I guarantee you I'm going to continue to drink and continue to drink. And, you know, eventually I'll get back there. He gave me the reason why I used. He gave me an answer why I couldn't stop. He put a name and a face to every single thing that I had felt and that nobody could explain to me before. You know, I said, why do I keep using? You know what I mean? I'm an addict. I suffer from this thing. It's called a mental obsession. You know what I mean? I used that first time, right? I have this mental obsession to get high. I can't stop thinking about it. So eventually, I'm going to use because I can't fight this all the time or I'm just going to be miserable. And once I use, I have this thing that we like to call an allergy. You know? And the allergy, explained, is once you start, you can't stop. You use, you get this phenomenon of craving, you're irritable, restless, and you continue to use. And we don't have that off switch in our head that we can just shut off. You know, people don't think it's a disease, but it is. We don't have that switch where we can just stop. You know, my mom can go home and she can have a glass of wine with dinner and she can stop. That doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? My dad can have a beer and stop. Me, it doesn't make sense. Why have one beer? Why not just drink them all? And he said, this is, and you know, and I kind of like to explain the allergy like this. You know, if somebody has a peanut allergy and they eat peanuts, they die from that peanut allergy unless somebody comes up to them with an EpiPen and, you know, they don't die from that peanut allergy. Well, if I use heroin, I keep using heroin, I overdose, and then you have to come up and hit me with Narcan. A person with a peanut allergy doesn't die from that peanut allergy unless they eat peanuts. Someone with a drug addiction doesn't die from addiction if they don't use drugs. But if I can't stop thinking about using drugs, how do I stop? You get rid of the mental obsession. The 12 steps, taking them with a sponsor, someone who's been through them, knows them, taking them honestly, cures the mental obsession. It makes it go away. Sobriety just comes after that. I'll always have an allergy to drugs and alcohol. If I use tomorrow, I'm going to be using the next day. But I don't suffer from that mental obsession anymore, so I don't have to worry about getting high. Okay? My life was in shambles. I took the steps. I went through 1 through 12. They don't end. You go through 1 through 12, you do 10, 11, and 12 for the rest of your life. But they are very, very easy things that people can do. Normal people, nice people can do on an everyday basis without even thinking about it. Like helping others, not being dishonest, not being selfish. You know, praying to a higher power. It doesn't have to be God. Anything to get you outside of your head, because everything that I relied on, man, here on this earth, to get me sober did not work. Suboxone, Vivitrol, you know, just going to a detox, going to meetings, just trying to say no. You know, my parents keeping me in the house, being on an ankle bracelet, them telling you you're going to go to jail. getting arrested. None of those things could stop me from using. So you go through this process. It's kind of like a little spiritual journey, okay? And it doesn't just cure that mental obsession. It teaches, what it's done is it has taught me how I am as a person. Because, I was not a very good person. To you guys, I probably seemed like a great person because we're manipulative, we lie, we're very smart people, and we can make you believe anything that we want. We can make it look real good on the outside, but on the inside, there's a whole other thing going on. And like I said, I'm just here to tell you guys the truth. And sometimes the truth is not what you want to hear. I learned that even before drugs and alcohol, I was not a good person. I was selfish. I was dishonest. I was manipulative. I didn't do right action. All I cared about was me. I didn't care about anybody else. The disease of addiction is a selfish disease. And I've realized through this process that the cure, once you've gotten that mental obsession to go away, is selflessness, doing for others, commitments, sponsorship. Now I sponsor other people. I go help other addicts because that's step 12, to give it back, to help others. I can help somebody that nobody else can because I'm a recovered heroin addict. Counselors have a hard time helping heroin addicts because they can't relate to them. You know what I mean? If I was them actively using, why would I want to tell them some of the sick, twisted things that I did? Because they're going to look at me like I was crazy, because I was. But if I had told that to somebody who's done the same things, they can relate and they can say, yeah, I did that too. They're not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge anybody else because there's nothing that they could tell me that I would say, I would understand. And it's hard. It's so hard because, I was given the solution. I mean, literally, it was like handed to me and I took it. Instead of trying to run through the door, I just took the key, gave up, and opened the door. I let other people make my decisions for me. For the first time in my life, I stopped fighting. I stopped always having the answer. And I just threw my hands up. I said, okay, you want me to do this? Okay. And life got better. Every little materialistic thing that I lost, I totaled my car, lost my girlfriend, lost my family's trust, lost where I had to live, almost lost my life. I've gotten every single one of those things back. I am proud. I am so happy that this happened to me, because if I wasn't an addict, I wouldn't have what I have now. If I didn't go through that process, even if I was sober, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't know how I am as a person. I wouldn't know my character defects that I have to work on. It's just crazy because I can be a good son to my parents now. I can be a good boyfriend to my girlfriend. I can be a reliable employee. And I am. But, I was put in that position where, I had no choice. I wanted it, and it was offered to me, so I took it. And a heroin addiction, untreated, is a death sentence. I mean, it really is. And, that's just the truth. Apart from divine intervention, divine help, there's really nothing you can do. You either keep using, like they say, go on to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, or you find another way. And I found that other way through the process of the 12 steps of AA with a sponsor. Doing it on the streets is a lot harder because humans have free will. We can make our own decisions, And I'm not saying that I'm not an addict anymore, because I am. if I use, I'll keep using. I just don't have to worry about using because I continue to do the last 3 steps, which are very little easy things to do, and that obsession just goes away. It's not there anymore. So if there's just there's anything I can say is just, if you know somebody that needs help or whatever, there are places, like there's a lot of people dying, but I know for a fact there are hundreds, thousands of people recovering every day. I've met hundreds of people. I live in a house with 4 other recovered heroin addicts. We have our own place in Woburn. We take addicts in on the couch. We teach them the 12 steps if they want it. We take their phone, we take their money, we make their decisions for them if they're willing to. We say, are you willing to do what we say? Are you willing to do anything? They start taking steps, they get better, that mental obsession goes away, they get a job, they get a car, and they live life like a normal human being, and then they give it back. Because how selfish would it be if I kept this to myself? If I just literally learned how to save people's lives, right, my life, and kept it to myself and didn't offer it back, how dare I? Because I can help people that nobody else can. And there's a ton of us out there. AA is a great program. NA is a great program. I personally think that the program through AA is what worked for me because I was a hopeless drug addict. It's what worked for me, and I feel like if I didn't go through it, if I didn't get a sponsor, if I didn't go to an inpatient, live somewhere, you know what I mean? So a safe environment, I wouldn't be here today. I know I wouldn't. So guys, just, thanks for letting me come here tonight and just going to leave off with a positive thing. Like I said, there's a lot of people recovering and there is help out there. AA, look up AA Big Book 12-step meetings. Go there with the person that that's using for support. You know what I mean? Try to help them. Look for a sponsor. Call that sponsor. But in the end, it has to be their decision. I could take my will back tomorrow and say, you know what, nope, I'm good. I don't need to do the steps anymore. I got this. And I would relapse eventually because we have free will. But I'm scared to death of using again because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be miserable. My life's going to fall apart, and everyone else's life around me is going to fall apart, and then I'm going to die. So I continue to do what I do and help others. And I'll be here after if anybody has any questions or needs my number. Thank you, guys.